Welcome everyone to a live session, cannot speak today, of Powerful Women Today. We have two of the most innovative and pioneering and thought leader ladies, mentor experts that I can hopefully share the stage with. And we were having a great warm up. And you know what? We are good to go. So let's get to it.
Empowering women on a global scale. Welcome to Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. Powerful Women Today is on a mission of inclusion, rewriting his story to include her story, and empowering, raising, and amplifying women's voices with professional speaking, publishing, original podcasting, and web TV. And now here's your host, the founder of Powerful Women Today, Carolina Billings.
Welcome to another episode of Business Insights. So from New York, we have our very own mentor expert, Sloan, who will introduce her greatness in a second. And from Texas, we've got Valerie Hayes, who is a fractional CEO, which is genius. So we cannot wait to share some insights. And today's theme or today's topic is knowing when the right time is to let go of the leadership of your organization. So Simone, welcome, and Valerie, welcome. If you could both introduce yourself for our friends, that would be amazing.
Great. Hello, everyone. Very excited to be here again with Carolina and PWT. As a mentor expert, I'm also founder, CEO of Your Choice Coach, where we do diversity, equity, inclusion, and executive coaching work. So really excited to be here.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Valerie, you are a special guest today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you and Simone. I am a fractional COO, which is kind of a new thing in the world of business consulting. And essentially, I am a part-time COO. I do everything a full-time COO does for business, but I do it for part-time. I work part-time with clients who are growing rapidly, but aren't big enough to want to pay the executive salary and perks of a full-time COO. So they get all the experience of my background and ability to create structure to grow a business and to scale the business, which is often the most challenging thing for people. So I work right along with the CEO or business owner as a part of their team, just like any other part-time employee, but I'm the COO.
And the brilliance of it, what I love about it is that building a fractional C-suite really is almost like dipping your toe into the next level, right?
Yes.
Building your think tank, if we must use that word, to really understand what the next level is all about, right?
Yes.
And there is a saying that everyone gets promoted to the point of incompetence, and you know what? That goes for founders.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That goes for founders. So today, that is the topic. There's a certain amount of healthy ego that comes with being the founder of an organization because it's about a solution. Clearly, you've identified a way to do it better, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? You believe that this is the better way. And you invest so much of who you are as a founder in planting the seed and growing an organization. And this is where true emotional intelligence and leadership comes into play. Because at some point, as a solopreneur and founder, you become a master of it all, right? One second you're IT, next second you're marketing, next second you're sales. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing for you to learn what your boundaries and limitations are, what's worth your time and isn't, and for you to kind of know what it takes as you begin to outsource and you begin to grow. If you get somebody that comes and says, oh, that's going to be so much, so many hours, you're like, nah, no, I've done it before and it's not going to take that long, right? But let's talk about what happens, and we have a great case study for us to discuss today. But let's talk about what happens when that founder is now reaching his or her limitations. So what are some of the signs that you're beginning to get into uncharted waters? Sorry.
Well, unfortunately, I think often founders miss the early signs, right?
Mm.
And typically, the team members recognize the early signs before the founder does. The first feeling that the founder begins to feel is stress, frustration, overwhelm, that they're getting tugged back in the day to day operations, or they're making operational level decisions, and they're not able to do the big picture visionary decisions because their day is consumed with operational issues. If your day is consumed with operational issues, you have operational issues.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
And because I run $1 million companies in 8 to 10 hours a week. That's all it takes me to run a company. So
Mhm.
if you as a founder are spending almost all day, every day on operational issues, then it's really time to bring someone in who's an expert so they can streamline it for you, relieve you of the overwhelm and stress so you can focus on actually growing the business. There's that saying that if you spend all your time running the business, you have no time left to grow the business.
Correct. Yeah. Simone, what has been your experience in
Yeah.
dealing with that transition?
Yeah, absolutely. Valerie talked about in the operations, you have folks who don't even want to deal with it and you want to ignore it as if it's going to go away, and it's not.
Mm.
And so, really having them understand that you have to lead and give direction. Otherwise, everyone else is kind of sitting there doing all these different things and not really focusing on how to mobilize the business forward. And so you talk about businesses that are at any stage, and that's one thing that came to me actually prior to into this call, wanting to scale, no procedures, don't talk about how that impacts or how's that embedded in the organization behaviors, and all they're doing is talking about transactional work.
Mhm.
That's not going to get us far.
And you know what is I remember during my days in corporate, we had a owner operated business that had grown, substantially. It was one of my first experiences growing a business from about 9 million to 25 million. So, and that means you're going from just a small team of people to almost 60, 70 people, right? To in that particular industry. And when we were doing planning, I remember him saying, next year we want to go from, I don't know, 25 to 30 million, for example. And I would say, as the director of finance, I would say, okay, great. So how are we going to do that? Right? Let's have that conversation. And he would say, well, we're going to sell more. Yes, that is part of it. But how are we going to sell more?
Right.
Right? And let's reverse engineer that. What does that look like? What is the infrastructure? And then they look at you like you're some kind of downer. It's like you're like, no, I don't want to have these conversations. This is like interrupting the dream, right? And it's like, and so what happens when you are the person that is getting in the way? How do you guys, as because what I love about what you do is that, if you think of a Venn diagram, right? You've got, when you got an internal C-suite, sometimes you're so in the game that you may have a vested interest in status quo,
Mhm.
or you're not able to see outside of it because you're so busy going. When you have a consultant that just lands, does, change and goes, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes you're left with, well, that didn't quite work, right? But this fractional consulting, nurturing, coaching that both of you bring to the table is like the ideal patch, the ideal bridge between the two. How do you guys begin a conversation with leadership,
Mm.
letting them know it's time, it's time to bring in experts?
Absolutely. I'll go first if that's okay, Valerie, because I think that the work that we do is like there's a thought process, the thinking, activation, and embedding. And we move leaders from just thinking about something to activation and then embedding that into their culture. And what does that really mean? Really looking at it in terms of identifying what's the vision, right? What are your strategies? And looking at what some of the objectives are. And sometimes they don't even know what that vision is. They just know, I want to grow. What does that look like? And forcing them to really have that reflection, working with their teams to understand their strengths and areas of opportunities. Part of that internal work too is, what does the environment tell us outside of what you think, right? Because we all have our assumptions and our judgments around it. And so, competitively, what does that landscape look like? Uniquely, what are you putting out there that's going to be best positioning for you? And so, looking externally and internally for those opportunities are ways through which to kind of get them start thinking and mobilizing in that direction.
I like that. I like
Those are
that.
really good points, Simone. I totally agree. And it is hard for the founders because they do have a lot emotionally invested into the business. It's their dream, it's their baby, and they're, don't want to let go. And so I think it's important. Oftentimes, when I come into a business and the founder is very emotionally invested, no matter what you say, they're going to have a hard time moving. Right. And so what I try to do is introduce the concept of data-driven decision making, because oftentimes founders who are heavily invested in what they're doing and how they've been doing it, when they see, oftentimes it turns out they've never been looking at the data, or they've been looking at it in a superficial way. But if you show them the data about, this big deal that you made, but you gave all of this away for free, so there was no actual profit margin. Maybe the sales revenue was great and you got the dopamine hit from closing the sale, but 2 or 3 months later, you ate up your profit margin with everything you gave away for free. So I think introducing data-driven decision-making into the organization is really, really helpful for the founder. And it's also helpful for the team because they no longer trying to do all the legwork and convincing the founder that the direction they're headed is not what's best anymore. And the data sort of does the convincing for them. So it makes it a little bit easier on everyone.
There's also the fear of who's going to tell the emperor's got no clothes, right? Like there may be the fear of bringing in bad news, of the matrix not supporting, what the vision is from the founder, from the operating manager. And the thing is, there's also the not wanting to be the bad guy. So sometimes, the founder is reluctant to make the necessary changes and decisions, right? Because they also don't want to be the bad guy.
Right.
And so having that person that comes in from the outside with a coaching, and this is something that when I was in corporate, it was just beginning. It was just beginning to be the new, the new leadership style, the new leadership fundamentals, is to have that coach come in from outside and work with the CEO. And I have to tell you, the C-suite did not like it. Because all of the sudden there's that other person coming in and planting seeds and ideas. But this is where, though, that's when you begin to walk into dangerous territory, right? When you're not willing, like you said, like Valerie said, to stop, take a look outside. What's the market? How's the market changing? One of the things that I was discussing with a local restaurateur here in the city, here in where I'm located. And she said, because we shut down completely through COVID, right, in Toronto. And so as soon as it was open, it was nice to go back and nice to chat with them. And I said, you must be so happy to be open again, right? And to see all your regulars come back. And she said, you know what, Carolina, not all the regulars are coming back, even though it's open, because consumers' behaviors have changed. The routines have changed, right? And so even though we're back being open, it's not just going back to where we left off.
Absolutely.
Right. So to be able to stop and take and have that outside coming in and do even a SWOT analysis, as basic as that sounds, right? To do a check, it's like, where's everybody else at? What is everybody else doing right now that is, mitigating. Right now we're seeing all these layoffs because everybody's trying to hedge, hedge the market, right? Like tough times are coming. Let's let go of these people. And then it creates this domino effect that letting go of the people is going to cause, is going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy to a certain degree, right?
Mhm.
But so let's talk about um, this beautiful article and case study that Simone actually brought to our attention, and I love it to be able to do an anatomy of what happened. Right, we are seeing so many huge institutions that we thought they were here forever, that were part of our culture, and they have not been able to survive all this rapid change. A
Mhm.
lot of it had to do with the founders.
Mhm.
So let's talk about there's a case study, and it's being published, so we're not disclosing any insider information. This was a published article about Bed Bath and Beyond,
Mhm.
and so this was an organization that is the North American dream, the global dream, really, right? Two founders with a dream that get to be part of the culture, right? Like they literally became part of our, you know, pop culture. And yet it all fell apart.
Mm.
Mhm.
So Simon, you brought this up to us. Share with our friends just the framework of it.
Sure. When you talk about the background, they started back in 71. Two founders excited with $50,000 to start this organization, and they were very excited. And it was by happen chance that they came out to be like this big warehouse because they had infrastructure things that they were trying to hide. So they clogged everything up with inventory, right? And when you go in there, inventory. But what was interesting though is that they were looking at it in terms of how do we increase the cart purchases so you don't just come in with one thing, but multiple things, right? And we can relate with that for those e-commerce organizations who are trying to get people to get the cart, leave with a full cart. But also, as part of that process, too, we saw changes in terms of the consumer behaviors and trends. People were going from retail to online. We
Mhm.
saw also competitors scaling up just in time delivery, right? We saw Walmart come into play. But then also, the mindset of the founders kind of stayed stagnant. So I'm going to leave it there and pass the baton.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think it was the classic story, unfortunately, of people having a skill set to get the business to one spot, right? But then not having the emotional courage to step back and bring someone in to bring it to the next level, right? It takes a lot of emotional courage to say, I don't think I'm the right person anymore, or to say, I think we need to bring in a CFO, or we need to bring in a chief marketing officer. I don't have a vision for how the internet fits into our business. Let's bring in somebody who knows how to do that. And you can still take pride in ownership and creativity of an organization, but you don't have to make all the decisions to run
Absolutely.
it. And I
And
think
actually,
that's what was hard for them.
Yeah.
when you think about it, and I don't know, maybe this is a male female thing because we're going to have to find this, by the way, this business insight is going to be a recurrent segment for us because it's about breaking down, right, what occurs. Because when you think about it, um, what a dream to build something to the point that after you've grown it to a certain level, now you get to step up. Really, it's not stepping aside.
No,
You're stepping up at becoming the best ambassador and the best, chairman of the board, or the best keeper of the culture and artifacts and myths, and it's about legacy, right?
Absolutely.
Like, to me, that's the dream. That's the dream, to actually delegate
Mhm.
all the C-suite functions to someone else.
And you said this important thing, delegation, because that's not the opposite of what took place. They
mm,
took on more roles and were owning that. Decision making only came down to the two of them, not even thinking about different perspectives to kind of say, hey, have you seen this? Do you notice that? This is where things are going. And so I think that's also a big hamstring, right, in terms of and hampering their growth.
And
and
also
they
not
had,
understanding the investment. Sorry, Valerie. Yeah,
I'm
go
so
ahead.
sorry. They had grown up in a time in business when business owners really did do everything, right? They really did. And that lasted probably from, 1945 to the late 70s,
It
right?
was before the internet.
Right. And then
Really.
in the 80s, we started to see differentiation in the executive level with CEOs and COOs. And the CEO was the brand ambassador, visionary, sort of, going out there trying to spread the message. And the COO started being, companies started bringing in COOs to run the daily operations. I don't think they were able to make that break. And
Mm.
so, what's important to understand is the generation that you come from colors your vision of leadership. And so, you always have to be evolving and developing new leadership skills consistent with the consumers that you're selling to, right?
Mhm.
And consistent with the employees that you're leading and consistent with what's happening in the marketplace. And I think they just couldn't, they took such pride in having started it from scratch and, worked and, they,
Going the distance.
It's their
yeah, and they were
babies.
used,
It's your baby,
yeah, and
right?
they were using cardboard boxes for garbage cans because they didn't want to spend money on garbage cans. And so I think it was just really hard. It's hard to let go, but letting go is an essential step to growing. You can't grow if you don't let go.
In understanding the investment,
Mhm.
which is what I was saying, and you just like hit on it, using cardboard boxes instead of garbage cans. And it becomes a different animal, in you, in the three of us, like this is a new power squad with PWT. It's really understanding because, okay, so now we're discussing Bed Bath and Beyond, but the reality is this. So you're an entrepreneur, a founder, that you've started your own business and you're doing great and you've done a great job as a founder, and now you've reached your multiple six figures. The reality is this: the second that you begin to invest in the infrastructure, you are taking home less money,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So, understanding the reasons why you're in business, if it's just all about money, you might be more profitable and more satisfied staying at the 500,000 or a million
Mhm.
business, right? Because you get to take all of it home, because you get to do all of it yourself or do it with minimal, infrastructure. But once you start being a multiple figure, multiple locations, global, you gotta build that infrastructure, build a family, share the wealth, and that means a legacy. Now there's people counting on you. Now there's families counting on you.
Mhm.
Now there's careers counting on you. So in the case of Bed Bath and Beyond, and we're going to put a link to the article and continue working on these analysis, is that they happen to sell, right? Like the founder sold because they took it as far as they could. And then it was literally the board that kept saying, you know what, changes need to happen. And I guess it was at that point that they were also, a little advanced in age, that they just thought, okay, this is bartender, this is where I get off, right? Or
Right.
bus driver, sorry. How did I mix those two? Anyways, it
5 o'clock somewhere.
doesn't even agree. Anyways, so it's like bus drivers is where I get off. And finding great for them. Like I understand they may have taken a little hit to the ego and all that, but they stepped away, and that business did not have the sustainability. So the investors lost their money, all the employees lost their job. Like it's actually a really sad story,
Mhm.
of have it come to that end.
Mhm.
So, well, we can keep going. We're already past our time. So what I would like to do is to invite, we are going to come back. Our magazine is out. So we're going to be thrilled to have, Simone and Valerie come and be part of that. But we are going to continue these conversations, because you may think that the Bed Bath and Beyond story doesn't apply to you, but it does,
Mhm.
right? Because you need to begin how you wish to end. So, with that in mind, Simone, would you like to give us something that anybody thinking of scaling and growing can do today, reflect, or any action item, and then we'll
Yeah,
do a
one
sentence
thing, yes,
plan.
I would say two things. One, embed trust in your culture and start doing that from day one, right?
Mhm.
Secondly, as part of that trust, start investing in your people. A lot of folks are laying off, and this is, and I read it every day, but this is where you really need to invest in those folks who are staying with you, because you want them to go that mile with you and distance.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So you know what? I'm feeling a part two party. So stay tuned. And thank you for, if you joined us live or on demand, this is an important and timely conversation. So I thank you for your insights, and you've given me a lot to think about. So until next time, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Empowering women on a global scale. This has been Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. To learn more about how you can join and transform your life and the lives of women everywhere with professional speaking, publishing, podcasting, and web TV, visit powerfulwomentoday.com. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you like to listen